Welcome back to the Turnbuckle Tavern and another edition of our Visits to Tavern live from the No Sale Studios. I am the ace of the tavern, Acefield Retro, and I am joined today by the Wrestling Christian, your grandma's favorite wrestler, Brother Greatness. Thanks for joining me, Bradley. How's it going, man?
Hey, man, life is good. Praise the Lord. I'm blessed and highly favored.
Dude, it's so glad. I mean, you and I have been talking for a bit now, and I met you a few times. We worked together at Sky's the Limit, but it's such an awesome thing to have you on here, so I can't wait to get into it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for having me. It's a sincere pleasure, especially with somebody that you actually work with, not, somebody random,
I imagine we're about into 2023. We're about to start our 7th month. You just competed at Remarkable Wrestling back at Sky's the Limit in January against Desmond Cole. You had a killer match with Joey Conway for the Fusion title at Sideshow and NYWC. How would you describe your 2023 thus far? It's only getting started.
Yeah, it's been a good start. I seem to always have relatively slow Januaries. I think last year, I don't think I had a single match, or maybe I had a single match in the month of January in 2022. So to start off hot, especially with so many opportunities on Long Island, working with Conway, working with Dez, people that I legitimately like and wanted to be in the ring with. It's a great start. And then at Wrestling Open, getting a chance to work as a manager after getting the manager's license with the Wrestling Open. It's been a good start. Lot louder than I'm used to having in the month of January.
I hear you. And you just mentioned Wrestling Open, and that's been a big staple of your 2023 thus far. Every Thursday forever. Hype up Wrestling Open, what Beyond is doing over there. What has it been like?
Yeah, no, Wrestling Open has been the most professional environment I've had the opportunity to work at. Great stories, great wrestlers, some of the best in the Northeast and beyond. Great visitors. I mean, you have Leo Rush there last Thursday. I mean, it's been quite impressive. 2022 for me, the start of the Church of Greatness, opening up in some really good matches. My 2 contests with CPA, working with Alec Price, Tyree Taylor, Ichiban, The Haven, Miracle Generation more times than I could count at this point. Getting to tag up with Even Stevens and manage Anastasia Morningstar. Wrestling Open has just been tremendous. It's been a hit. And if you're one of those people who are essentially tired of the same old from any of the major companies and you want a weekly presentation that's going to be quality, IWTV, $10 a month, every Thursday forever, as you said, Worcester, Massachusetts. It doesn't get much better than that. I don't understand why anyone who has the time on a Thursday at 8 p.m., why, especially with the NFL season wrapping up, why wouldn't you enjoy this? Especially since Thursday Night Football is terrible this year. Why wouldn't you enjoy this?
100%, man. And the thing is, I was about to say the same thing. IWTV on Thursdays, wrestling has so many opportunities for people to consume it, but like what Beyond is doing, there seems to be a momentum and movement there at the same spot. People know where to find it. There's been a lot to be said about the fandom that's growing there. And it feels like it's a destination for fans to come to. And that seems weird to say. I mean, it's only been about a year at this point, but it really feels like fans are going to be traveling all over to get there.
Yeah, no, and they've already begun. We see a lot of the New York-based fans that I'm used to seeing in the Bronx. Back when I was in the Bronx a lot, in Brooklyn or what have you, I've been seeing a lot of them. During the Restival, people flying in from the West Coast to come watch Prestige, and by that basic connection, getting to see the Wrestling Open, the people who came down for Americarana, a lot of them came to Thursday night as well for Open. It's really been great. It's been an awesome opportunity for the best wrestlers in the Northeast to get seen on what I consider to be the largest possible offering that they could possibly gather outside of being on network television.
So you mentioned a slow start for January. That seems to be the typical, but according to Cage Match, and this may be for hope to top this year.
Honestly, I'm probably going to end up topping it accidentally, just because for a large part of last year, I was planning to no longer compete. So there's a few months there that were very short. I had a dead January, that kind of thing. So this year, the only way I won't top it would be because I'm spending so much time managing now. I actually haven't had my first match at the Wrestling Open for 2023 yet because I've been managing the Even Stevens and Anastasia Morningstar. So that's the only way I'm not going to hit the numbers that I had last year.
So you mentioned managing and having to get your managerial license. And what was the process like for that? Obviously, wrestling, we talk about all the different roles that are in there, whether it be referees or the ring announcer that, I have the privilege of doing that at the Remarkable shows. Everybody plays a part. So what was that process like? And what was the desire to do that manager role for different promotions, specifically with Beyond?
Yeah. So at the Wrestling Open, I'm there as a professional wrestler. I'm there leading the Church of Greatness. And honestly, it was just speaking to the powers that be, letting them know again and again and again that I had interest, formally sending them over a piece of information, letting them know that, hey, this is something I can do, something I want to do. And there was just kind of an agreement that, yeah, this would be best for the promotion, best for me. So I'll still be competing on the Open, but you won't be able to see it every Thursday like you did in 2022. If you want to see Brother Greatness compete at Wrestling Open, just focus on the Twitter. Look at all the social media machines, because when those few moments are announced, they're going to be special. It's going to be must-see IWTV television. It's going to be very unique from what you saw in 2022. It's probably going to be closer to what you saw when I went one-on-one against Eel O'Neill at the pizza party. It's going to be very high-level competition.
So you mentioned the Church of Greatness, and of course we'll get into that, but your moniker is the Wrestling Christian, as I introduced you here. How important has faith been in your life and wrestling career alike? I mean, is there a separate entity for the character Brother Greatness in the faith and the man behind the character?
Yeah, there's not a very large gap, to be honest with you. Brother Greatness is essentially designed to be the version of myself that I aspire to be. Like, I'm really trying to be that consistently positive, consistently engaged, always putting God first kind of individual in my day-to-day life. Brother Greatness gives me the opportunity to try to do that. Also, for myself, for my own faith, instead of making wrestling number one, it allows me to take something that I love and could get very addicted to and make it all about God. Just all the time, every bump, hallelujah, every bump, amen, every bump, praise the Lord, every move, it's all Christ focused. So even if I lose my way, my day-to-day life, as soon as I walk into a locker room, people are going to straight up call me out. Hey, why are you speaking like that? Aren't you supposed to be the Christian guy? Hey, why are you acting like that? Aren't you supposed to be the Christian guy? And now all of a sudden I've taken the wrestling community that back in the day was so focused on drugs or whatever craziness. And now I've turned that same community of non-believers, for the most part, into a bunch of people who are helping me stay on a righteous path. So the character is really an extension of myself, but it also puts me in check spiritually. And it's very important to me in my day-to-day.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just to speak to that, just seeing it firsthand was, at Remarkable Wrestling, I see the conversations you have behind the scenes and how genuine you are, and even leading group prayer prior to the show going on. So all that energy that we see there is well received by your peers. And you can just tell that it's not a gimmick. It's a lifestyle. So that's a true fact, guys.
Yeah, very much so. It's me. There's no other way I could really put it.
So if we get back to when you started wrestling back in 2012, it seemed like the landscape of wrestling has shifted dramatically in a lot of ways, independent, and obviously with the addition of AEW becoming an entity as a second true option for, major places to work. But what's something that's been more challenging than you expected when you started your journey back in 2012?
I think the hardest thing for me was I had so many challenges. I mean, first thing first, I didn't have a lot of money. I was still in college. I went to Oxford University. So I was bouncing from Hempstead, Long Island on the LIRR. I had no driver's license to Brooklyn to the Ludus School under Joel Massimo. Once or twice a week. I barely had enough money for dues. Joel really helped me out. And just paying for the thing was just the hardest thing for me. And then the next step was when I started getting very serious, putting on weight. I started at 100 and I believe I was 130 or 100, around the low 130s when I started wrestling. That is a puny individual. At right under 5'4", it's really difficult trying to be taken seriously and to be able to get to a certain level when you're at that level of weight. I was an amateur wrestler in high school, so I was there physically. I didn't have any problems with the cardio, but just the difference in size when you're in there bouncing around with someone like Sam Shields, you might want to pull up a more muscle on your back and your chest.
100%. And you mentioned some of the reputable names, one of them being Joel Maximo, but a couple of hands had their hand in training you with names like Matt Stryker, the Grim Reaper, Amazing Red. You mentioned Joel Maximo, kind of a who's who in the last 10 years as far as Long Island wrestling goes. I guess talk about training with those guys. You mentioned Joel Maximo and helping you out as far as being a leader to you, but what was the training like when you first got into it?
Yeah, so it was a lot of basics. In the beginning, it was a lot of time with Chris Cage. I have to give him a lot of respect. We don't always see eye to eye, but Chris Cage, the recently retired superstar Whiplash, and Tony Mamaluke at the Ludus really put a lot into me. And I have to thank them 1,000 times, just to name a few. Ortiz, Santana were super helpful there too as just leaders. Same thing with Sam Shields. Greg Jones, I have to give a lot of love to. And a lot of it was just learning the basics and then eventually learning that kind of American lucha style that obviously Joel and Will are very well known for. After moving on and going to FTW, Grim Reaper, who in my opinion, best wrestling trainer ever, just ever, hard-nosed cat, plays no games, terrifying individual. But when I tell you best trainer ever and a genuinely good person, Reefer, just all the basics I had, just elevated it and showed me a new way. And a lot of the stuff he taught me, I still use to this day. Obviously meeting Kono, and he's a great leader to me, and getting to connect with people like Dominic De Niro, DEZMOND COLE, Gabriel Sky, Ace Andrews, JD Alpha, Alfred, Alphonse, Ref Alphonse, and training with all those guys just to take less of the American lucha and more of the true blue, like here's what we're really about, that guerrilla camp, doghouse kind of feel. Moving on from there to BWF for the Dominican lucha, and then under Bronco International, and then eventually to Hog with Amazing Red, which was a lot of what I learned back in 2012. So it was a nice bookend for me for my training, going from a Mikey Whipwreck ladder to a Mikey Whipwreck ladder of knowledge. Yeah,
and it's like you mentioned too, it's being able to be efficient at all these different styles and being able to match up to the opponents. And we spoke about in the beginning of this conversation about wrestling a guy like DEZMOND COLE at Remarkable and then wrestling Joey Conway, two very different guys, but I felt like you matched up really well against both of them.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult working with either individual. And I've been around long enough that I go into a lot of locker rooms in the Northeast. People are like, oh yeah, I know you. And whether I know the wrestler or not, I'm just like, oh great, this is gonna make my life, because they know what's coming.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a huge thing. And I talked about the positive energy on your end, that you could just feel that everyone's gravitated towards you. And that was something with me as well. You were so welcoming, especially on my first show. You made me feel very welcome. So I do appreciate that. And it goes a really long way for someone who might be new. And I guess you, being 10 years, you're well versed at doing this. So I just do appreciate that.
Listen, you're a pleasure. You're a patient. You do your job extremely well. And honestly, anyone who's in the back trying to have a good time, I'm right there trying to have a good time with you. Let's enjoy our time backstage until we have to get out there and do the business.
100%. And you talked about interacting with the fans and getting them going, and part of your positive energy. How important is it to you to connect with the live audience to get them involved? Sitting on their hands is definitely not something you want them to be doing, because you want them clapping along, saying hallelujah with you. You can definitely tell you want them involved.
Yeah, nothing's more important to me in terms of professional wrestling than crowd engagement and crowd control. I sincerely believe every wrestler should be able to go out there and have an idea of how they want the crowd to react, what they want them to say, etc. Moves are cool, everything else is, it's great, but I want to connect with the crowd, whether it's on multiple levels, because having a crowd of people screaming hallelujah at a wrestling show, I mean, nothing sounds better to me, honestly. But even when I might not be on the more favorable side of things with the audience, I still want them engaged on a wrestling level, because it makes sense. These are people spending money. And then on a Christian level and on a service level, making sure that I have I've turned this group of people into a congregation that's talking about Jesus Christ, whether or not it's with me or whether it's them saying, wow, this guy's supposed to be a Christian. That's not how someone in Christ is supposed to act. And they'll sit down and tell you how a person in Christ is supposed to act. Okay, great. If that's how they're supposed to act, you go ahead and do it. Either way, you're going home and you taught yourself a lesson because I was there to remind you to teach it to yourself.
One of the big staples at the shows is chanting, specifically at VPW, I see it a lot, is chanting, "Not today, Satan." So why do you feel like people really want to chant along with that? It's catchy, but do you think it like resonates with some people?
Yeah, it really does, surprisingly. I wish there was a deep story behind it. All that happened is in late 2019, I decided I want to kind of switch my image up a little bit, look a little edgier. So I started looking up some denim jeans jackets. One looked really nice. It said, "Not today, Satan." I said, well, I can support that. So I got the thing, started wearing it out, and people started chanting it and coming to me and giving me a whole different set of testimonies at the merch table about how they need to get negativity out their lives and battling cancer and everything. And I'm just like, wow. It's like I just got it because it was on a jeans jacket. So it's been great. And it's a message that I'm going to put on way more tights, merchandise, what have you, because it seems to be touching people's lives.
100%. And we talked about the positivity and your ring presence. That's a big part of what's going on in the ring when Brother Greatness is out there dancing, positive energy. We mentioned the chanting. I'm sure the guys we mentioned earlier had a hand in, influencing your style, but who else right now are you watching when you want to do some tape study and be like, I don't want to fine tune some other things. Let's watch this guy go to work.
Yeah, definitely. Steiners, really watching a lot of the Steiners lately. Just literally any of the old tag matches. I quite literally utilize the Steiner Bulldog as my primary finisher. I only crack that out when I know for certain, it's going to work out for me. So yeah, Steiners, a lot of Steiners lately. For more recent stuff, I've been partially for my own entertainment. I'll be completely honest. But watch a lot of Alec Price just because that guy can straight up go. Absolutely fantastic, super entertaining. I'm going to watch him versus Leo Rush from Mike Snow right after this conversation is finished. I'm going to load that up on IWTV. Is there anyone else right now? That's really where I've been lately. Yeah. I mean, in the past, a lot of my tape studies been like AJ Lee, which no one ever expects, but a lot of AJ Lee in the past and a lot of Chavo.
Oh, wow. So, you mentioned Mike Snow, guys. Go check that out. It's on demand right now for IWTV. So that was a great event. I got some great talent there, not just talent that's always with Beyond, but Willow Nightingale was there. So a lot of good talent was available for Mike Snow. So you were known as your grandma's favorite wrestler. And that was something you and I were discussing. And you're like, I want that emphasized. I want that being clear to the audience. And it gets a pop every time it's said. But what goes into that moniker? And I can confirm it's true. I think you're my grandma's favorite wrestler. But what made that sort of something you want to be said? Because it's funny as hell. But is there anything more to it?
So, and a lot of things with me is either very deep or very shallow. Like I have no in between. I went to the Fallout shelter in Queens and was just rolling around, getting a nice little training session and getting a sweat in. I ended up doing a practice match against one of their younger guys who I just so happened to have known for like probably 15 years or something crazy like that. I've always known the guy. As dude Randy. Huge guy, loves The Undertaker. Great dude. So we're about to wrestle this match. Joe Kim decides that he's going to do this whole announcement. He goes, "Your grandma's favorite wrestler," and everyone gets a laugh out of it. And I'm like, funny. Afterwards, I talked to him like, funny enough, a lot of people walk up to me saying that their moms, aunts, grandmas just like love me. And he's just like, well, I guess it's true then. So I said, okay, if it's true, you might as well say it. And I started using it from almost like the beginning of the Wrestling Open. And whether it's Ref Bill or different wrestlers, there's always someone's mom, grandma, auntie, Desmond Cole's mom who wanted to fight me at VPW a few months back. Like, there's always someone who's telling me, like, wow, they really, like, women over the age of 40 over the age of 30, 40, 50, 60. Like, any woman who's had a child apparently loves Brother Greatness. I don't know.
We can't skip over the story with Desmond Cole's mom. I mean, you got to tell the story if it's able to be told.
Yeah. That I don't think Desmond would be upset, and if he would be, I apologize ahead of time. I want to wrestle Desmond Cole specifically at Victory Pro Wrestling for the New York State Heavyweight Championship. I want that championship. I've wanted it for years because before I was a wrestler, I was an intern at Victory Pro Wrestling back in 2010. And I helped a show happen in Hofstra University that VPW ran. I've wanted that championship since before I knew how to wrestle. I've been begging for an opportunity at Dez. It hasn't happened. Dez wants to wrestle me too. So one day I got a little outside of myself in front of the merch table, got right in Desmond's face, told him what I ain't know. Dez is a man of few words. Got all up in Desmond's face, snatched his hat off. Wrestlers started getting involved. Alvin Alvarez is like, calm down, guys. And when I walked away, I guess his mom saw what was happening. And she didn't, I don't think she realized that me and Desmond are actually pretty close. It was just a moment. And she was ready to fight me. And she came to the merch show. She said, if my son didn't tell me not to come here and fight, I would have hit you in the face. I'm like, I just want to wrestle your son. I just want to. Desmond's like, no, it's okay. I want to wrestle him too. We just need to wait for it to happen. So one day, I want at Victory Pro Wrestling specifically. It was great getting him at Remarkable. Love Remarkable. In my opinion, Remarkable is the coolest promotion in Long Island. Only challengeable by Cat maybe, but I specifically want him at Victory Pro Wrestling because of the history I have at that promotion.
We'll get into that in a sec because VPW is having a show called Notorious coming up, and I know Desmond's otherwise occupied, but we'll get into the VPW show coming up next weekend. But you've done a few of these podcasts. I did some research and watching you were the Indie Wrestling Corner, and shout out to that podcast. They're some great people and what they're doing over there. But what side of you do you want people to see of Brother Greatness, of Bradley, of whoever on things like this when you have a little bit more time to, I guess, express yourself than the 10, 15 minutes you have in the ring?
I mean, to be honest with you, kind of the same thing everybody sees in the locker room. I just kind of want people to, honestly, whoever, like, you're the guy asking the questions, so I'm just going to answer them. Don't put too much thought into it. It's very much just, I know who I am. And I know what a lot of people assume I am. And for me, I'm very straightforward. I'm very to the point about things, run-on sentences, but to the point. So I just want people to see what I'm truly about, and I don't always know how to do that. So having someone literally just go, hey, answer this question is sometimes the easiest way to show the locker room in front of people.
100%. And we mentioned Church of Greatness. It's been sort of a recurring theme here. It started back in 2022 with some familiar and interesting personalities. You mentioned some of them in passing, but let's put them on here. We got Sister Anastasia. We got Boom Hayden, Brother Haru, Elijah Six, Perfect Perkins, a.k.a. Brother Perfect. Sammy Diaz, love that guy, by the way, too. And you got Steve Somerset and the Brother Azor. All these guys, we got the women as well. What's the influence and the idea behind the faction, aside from, trying to make sure you're guiding them to make sure they're doing the right thing?
Yeah, no, Worcester is legitimately a mess. Have you ever been to Worcester?
I have, yes, actually, I have.
Drugs and craziness. Worcester's a little insane. Worcester's a little bit much. Yeah. When you get off at the exit, there's usually like these two crackheads just like hanging out. What is that, exit 17? Like you see the little Coca-Cola sign, and Worcester's crazy. Worcester's insane. And when I first got there, and I'm hearing some of the chants, second time in my life, people are chanting Satan to me. They're going, Satan, Satan. Wow. I'm like, whoa, what are you guys doing? This is insane. So if no other venue required church, I would say the White Eagles needed it. So, that was kind of a running gag for a little bit. And, we started building it. So it was myself with Brother Perfect, Brother Sammy, Brother Elijah. Elijah wasn't feeling it. Then Perkins wasn't around anymore. Sammy quit. I had Haru. Then Haru kind of got rid of Haru. Well, Haru's still part of it, just not in Massachusetts. We're going to keep him away. They're not really getting it with Haru. Got the brothers, even Stevens in there. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and I've been lucky enough to be the consistent center. And what's nice about it is that whether I'm at the Open or not, whether I'm sick on a work trip, whatever's going on, if someone from the Church of Greatness is there, then that means every Thursday is a Bible study. Every Thursday is a service now. Whether I'm there or not, there's now an opportunity to praise God.
It reminds me of the Heenan family a little bit because it's an extension of yourself and you're able to, that's what it really feels like. So that's the vibe you're giving off. And I'm glad it resonates on your end as well.
We're picking up what we're putting down, brother.
100%. So let's go back to Sky's the Limit for a second. You mentioned Desmond Cole at VPW. Got the crowd really fired up in that gauntlet match. You guys had a decent amount of time to go. Not as much time as you probably guys could have done. Like you guys could have won another 5, 6, 10 minutes because you guys are really flowing. What's it like getting in the ring with Dez? You mentioned VPW, but in general, and what do you think you guys could do if given 25 minutes to be like, go out there and kill it, do it?
If I had 30 minutes with Desmond Cole, it'll be the best match of my life. Be the best match that I've had so far. If I had 20 to 30 minutes with Desmond Cole, it'd be tremendous because Desmond is so gifted. And he's humble, and his character is him. And he just gets it. And I've known him for a long time, and I watch him for fun. He's known me for a long time. He watches my work for fun. We're both legitimate fans of each other's work. He's met my girlfriend. I've met his and his family. And I've seen him grow and develop. He's seen a lot of my growth and development. And everything meshes very well. We have this unique... The only person I have that kind of... I could just get in the ring, I just kind of feel it. It like him, it reminds me of the first couple times I wrestled Chris Cage, where it just feels so natural. If I got Desmond in a match that mattered, in a story that mattered, and 20 to 30 minutes to play with it, I don't think there's going to be too many other matches on the independent scene that will be able to stand up to it. Well, unless Alec Price is involved, because that man is different. But with the exception of Alec Price or someone from TV coming from on high to gift us their presence for the first time in months, I don't think there's too many matches that could stand up to myself versus Desmond Cole in 20 to 30 minutes.
So promotions out there. Yeah, let's do it. Get it out there, guys. We want to see that match. As a fan of wrestling, we want to see that match. And even better, it's for the New York State Championship. But maybe it's for that Riot Championship in Remarkable Wrestling. Maybe, just maybe. That
would be great, especially with that locker room. Remarkable's locker room is just like, it's a bunch of people I love. So it would be great to do it there with a locker room just peeking through the curtain.
Hell yeah, man. So you've taken up the mantle doing some training yourself from my research. What has that been like? We've seen Stan Michael out of the Indies for a bit, and I'm sure that makes you super proud. I saw him at VPW for the first time. His whole presence and act popped me huge with the singing stuff. But what has that been like giving on the other side of the knowledge tree that you've accumulated the past decade? That must be definitely different and, I guess, humbling for you to be able to do that for somebody.
Yeah, it was amazing. I helped open T2T Wrestling Academy in Brooklyn. In the middle of the pandemic, we opened that bad boy. I was there for about a year, left when I moved out of Brooklyn. And I had the opportunity to have a hand in a lot of people's development and developing them, helped develop myself as well, to be completely honest. And even though I'm proud of everyone there, like some of my biggest projects, Stan Michael's probably my favorite, ground one, start to finish student. He still has a ton to learn, a ton to do, but he's one of the few people I consider a true friend that I was training, and he's so gifted. I just hope he keeps pushing because he could be something very unique in the Northeast scene. Then Tiara James, who's now under Damian Adams. I try not to bring it up too much because I'm like, no, that's Damian's student right now. Shush. But yeah, no, so super proud of her. Always believed in her. You look at her, screams money. One of the most intelligent women I've ever met in my entire life. Never afraid to ask a question, no matter how anyone feels about the question. Great individual. Angelo Carter. And then the guys who came in there who were already trained, like Shotgun Shane Adams. Shotgun I'm so proud of him. He actually called me during this. He calls me at least twice a day. Shotgun's so much better now than he was before. Super Nitro. In terms of character development, never been happier with someone. I could go on and on, but real blessing. Hopefully one day I catch a contract, and when I'm done, I'll have an opportunity to do it again.
100%. And let's get back to your training over a decade ago at this point. 2012 is when it started. You guys can follow at Brother Greatness 2012. That's the origin of the 2012, the end of the Instagram handle. But what pointed you in the direction of getting the training for you? We mentioned how you got trained and who had a hand in it, but what pointed you there? Were you a lifelong fan? Was it something you've always wanted to do, or just fell into your lap kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I was a wrestling fan very late for my generation. I got into wrestling. I officially became a wrestling fan the day Rey Mysterio debuted for the WWE on SmackDown.
All right. So
I was watching
2002.
Yeah, 2002. And I was watching the Parkers on UPN, and SmackDown came on right after. And I was like, ooh, this is great. I did martial arts, did a lot of fighting, did a lot of backyard wrestling, way more than I care to admit. And eventually, me and a brother or two from my time in the yard went to go sign up for a school. And, in my brain, I was already a wrestler forever. But, when you start actually training, you're like, oh, yeah, I've been doing everything terribly wrong. Let's learn the actual art of this beautiful sport.
So, favorite wrestlers growing up, you mentioned Rey Mysterio, but any other guys from that Ruthless Aggression era that really stick with you is like, that was the reason why I wanted to do this?
Yeah, Ray, definitely Ray, just because he made me a fan. Him and Chavo made me a fan. Angle, Benoit, they made me want to actually physically do it because I love that submission style. I was like, if I ever become a wrestler, I'll be the quiet guy who goes out there as a technician and throws on great submissions. Obviously, that didn't work out. And then started going, when I started doing research, I loved watching Taz. Any Taz match, I'll sit down and watch. And Luthez is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Those old, long matches, they were fantastic. I loved them when I was younger.
That's awesome. And that's an eclectic mix. It kind of speaks to the pro wrestler you are and the adaptability of your style. I mean, you mentioned Luthez, Taz, Chavo, Rey Mysterio, all in the same sentence. So that just speaks to who you are in your fandom. So it just shows why you're able to adapt to the other people in the ring.
Never thought of it like that.
So I'm of the opinion that competition and generally more wrestling creates better wrestling. And we mentioned WWE not being the monopoly anymore, AEW being a platform for other people to go and aspire to work. But as a fan, are you following the current product, and do you have a preference? Are you watching either one consistently, or are you just kind of tuning into the clips online?
Yeah, so I struggle. I am of the sincere belief that every professional wrestler should be following everything that they can. I also don't have cable, so I'm fighting the fight. So me and my girlfriend's been very helpful with this because she's not a traditional wrestling fan. She got back into it because we were dating. So we're really good about watching SmackDown when it's good. And then I can always tell when we lose interest because it starts becoming a chore to put it on. So right now, things I shouldn't say live, right? But right now, I'm not really loving anything that's going on, but I don't dislike anything either. Where it's like the current Cody story, I am just sucked in. The current Bloodline story, everything Bianca Belair does has just been absolute money. LA Knight, just beautiful. But there's a lot on the program that I just feel isn't fleshed out enough. NXT, I'll enjoy like a segment per episode, which is a shame. And AEW, honestly, I keep wanting to say it's the best, but I understand that I'm very biased because that's the contract I want. So a man could go in there and poop in the ring and leave, and that could be the entire episode. And I'll be like, great, wonderful. I can add so much to that because that's who I want to work with. Impact doesn't get enough credit, though, and I'm always going to say that. Fantastic writing. I'll always say Impact deserves more credit. And I need to get back in NWA. I haven't been following it all.
Yeah, they had a live episode yesterday, so that was pretty cool. First time live on YouTube. So you guys, like we talked about, all the different wrestling out there, check it out. And you mentioned Impact as well. I think Impact, the key to them was they finally identified maybe there was the pressure relieved when AEW came into power where they didn't have the ability, like the opportunity to be the second tier, not the second, but the second big option where they just like, let's fall comfortably into number 3. And that's where they've been thriving. Like you mentioned, the storytelling is so underrated and the talent there, some of the best in the world. Yep.
Yeah, they're not bringing people in and out as much. It just, everything feels settled.
Yeah.
At Impact. Man, obviously I would love a contract from whoever gives it, but Impact is a shame more people don't don't tune in. Even the women's shows. Obviously, I can't get a contract there, but all these new women promotions that are popping up. It's been very good television. It's almost too much to take in when you add in the Beyond, and all the things under the Beyond tree, WWR and Open, and then everything under Limitless, everything going on then with the Dojo Wars and Let's Wrestle and The Road, which if you never watched The Road during COVID, you're missing out. There's so much good wrestling. It's too much to consume.
There really is. And you mentioned WWE before, and I try to bring up one current event during these interviews. We talked about Jay Briscoe and RIP Jay Briscoe. Everything went on last week. We talked about favorite matches, but I'm going to stick with what happened. What was the news story this week? And it was the Royal Rumble and how it ended. You talked about the Bloodline thing about SmackDown. You said nothing's really exciting you so much in the WWE side, but do you think that anything's going to top, as far as wrestling story goes, the Sami Zayn stuff that went on with Roman Reigns? Do you think anything's going to top that this year? And do you think a story right now is better than that?
No, there's no story in professional wrestling, in my opinion, that's better than the Bloodline story. I think it's fantastically told. They've taken years to develop it. The ride has been absolutely fantastic. Like when I talk about not too many things are exciting me in the E to watch week by week over the course of the last year, I do not mean Bloodline by any stretch of the imagination. That has been masterfully told. Beautiful. It has the old school stuff, the new school stuff. The matches are incredible. Sami Zayn is a master of his craft. It's been absolutely tremendous as a fan, as a worker. And what's cool about it is even though there's so much history, WWE is so good at making it easy for people who have no idea what's going on to just jump in. So like me and my girl, we didn't watch SmackDown for like 2-3 months. And then we just dived back into getting into Royal Rumble season. And we were just like, oh, wow, this is what happened? This is great. It's perfection.
If you had the book for WrestleMania, and this is putting you on the spot here, do you think they should have made the decision to have Sami take on Roman, or do you think you're sticking with the Cody plan and have Sami do the Montreal thing? Because, I mean, there's a school of thought 2 different ways. And I think you kind of have to follow the hot hand if you follow history of wrestling. If you ignore the groundswell of where the momentum is, sometimes you miss out.
At this point, I don't think they can make a mistake. they have so many wins, because who's going to be mad at Roman versus Cody and Sami does something to mess it up? Who's going to be mad at Cody one night and Sami the other night? Who's going to be mad? Like they can't lose at this point. I mean, if I had the book myself, what I would do would probably piss everyone off. Roman and Cody would just wrestle one-on-one with no one at ringside. No, maybe get Paul Heyman doing a weird like run-in thing that gets ruined and whatever, but no one's at ringside and Cody loses more or less clean to Roman. And everyone's like, what was the point? And then I would take the time to tell the story that the E probably wanted to tell with Cody last year if he didn't, tear his pec.
Right.
And then my next story will be building up Sami even more and creating this really annoying situation, kind of like what they did with Bianca last year, to eventually get Sami versus Roman at SummerSlam. Sami loses in some dumb behind way. Everyone's like, why and I want Roman to still have it at Mania.
At 40, I agree. In Philly, I want him to, I want it as well.
And then he could lose to either of them. Whichever side, I'd be telling 2 stories at the same time. And then eventually, somewhere in there, we get that climax, figure out which one's the better hand. It's probably going to be Cody. And move the belt on next WrestleMania. The Bloodline story is too thick. It's too perfect, because after you give it to Cody, there's stories that are there to tell about a year's worth, easy writing. But, man, Roman could really hold this for another 2 years, and it won't go stale. Wrestling fans don't hear that, but that's what I think.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's weird to say, because you look at those records that Bruno Sammartino set, and I don't know if he's going to approach that level, but as we eclipse 1,000 days, that conversation starts to be had where maybe he can hold it for another 2 or 3 years. And you mentioned there's even guys not in the pipeline or not even being used for the Bloodline. You can go back to Jacob Fatu. Like maybe they wait until the MLW deal is over and they bring him into the fold. Like there's so much rich storytelling that like is possible too. The other thing is like there's potential for new story to be told. And I think that, like, I agree, man. I think this is the best story that they've told in a very long while, because that's the thing that was missing was depth. They're so, like you mentioned, they're so good at appealing to the casual fan to let people just dive back in and out. So they were ignoring that really deep and rich story because they didn't think the casual fan can handle it. But I think they're realizing you can get a mix of both. Because
they found a middle ground, and that's so hard to write. You can't write that. it has to just kind of, you can't write that Roman just happens to be family with all these guys who are all working on top level, and Roman's not getting injured for anything long term, and at the same time you're getting Brock when you need him, then Cena when you need him, and then Edge when you need him. You can't predict this, and then you can't predict that Cody was going to show up. No one wrote this 3 years ago and said, well, Cody will be back by then. Like, no, one's smart enough to do all of this, and they're really writing month by month story arc. No, they didn't plan this Sammy thing. It just happened.
Right.
They're doing a phenomenal job. That story and the Bianca story, just chef kiss. I have nothing bad to say.
So let's get back to what's phenomenal as well. It's the Northeast, man. And there's so much talent on the Northeast. It's ripe. And it's been heralded as a hub at this point. I think people recognize, circle on your calendar these events that are happening, all these promotions on Long Island and across the Northeast. We mentioned Worcester, but all of across the Northeast. You can go down to Florida as well. They're doing some great stuff there. But what do you think sets this area apart from other areas to build these stars and build future mega stars for the eventual AEW, WWE, and maybe New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Competent promotion. Three things: competent promotions, competent trainers, and a desire from the older generation or people who are very successful to come here because they're either from here or they have a story from here that causes them to return. So competent promotions. You have Beyond Limitless and NEW all in the New England area. Just that's absurdity. That's anyone who has an opportunity to wrestle for one of those promotions all the time is consistently being seen by high-level talent and getting to work with high-level talent that has had or currently has contracts. And all three of them are in its general area of, we're talking Maine, Connecticut/Massachusetts, and then Massachusetts/Rhode Island. That's absurdity. Then the quality of trainers you have Amazing Red with House of Glory right over there. Don't even get me started on Creative Pro. I could go on and on. And like, you even dial it down, like Kono is teaching a small group of us fantastically, and people are like, some people even know who Kono is, and he's one of the best in-ring competitors I've ever met. Like, right. You still have Grim Reaper right there. You have the Matsumo's right there. Beyond just opened a school out of Worcester right there. You have TOS with Slick Wagner Brown, who's amazing, right there. And then you have all these great, like D'Lo Brown comes down and does seminars, and then you have all the recent AEW hires that come around. Santana was running a school for a year. I'm forgetting people right now, and I don't want to disrespect anyone. You know how that goes, but that's just at the tip of the tongue. So it's just competent promoters, at least on the highest level, competent training, and then we got guys like Leo Rush coming to hang out at Worcester. A dude like Max Caster coming every 5 seconds because he lives in Long Island. Willow lives in Long Island. What are we even talking about at this point? It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And to speak about one of the promotions happening on Long Island, Bayshore, New York, next weekend, Saturday, Victory Pro Wrestling presents Notorious. So this will be the first VPW show since, believe it or not, November, when they had Disorderly Conduct. Do you have any teasers for what people can expect from Brother Greatness on the day? I don't think a match has been officially announced, but I don't know if you can give any teasers for people to go out and buy tickets.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I'll be going one-on-one against KJ Mack of the Fallout Shelter. Young cat, disturbingly talented, disturbingly gifted, probably one of their best young prospects. He is with Silky Smooth, and that's going to be an interesting contest for me, since I'm recently what I thought was I was coming out of the story with Adam Kane and Kane Industries, but it looks like that's going to continue. So, we had a Pure Rules match, a version of a Pure Rules match back in, I want to say it was October or something like that last year. So if you enjoyed any of that story, this will definitely be a level of continuation. And I was talking about people with contracts or formerly had contracts coming back down. The show is named after Notorious Mimi, who was Sloane Jacobs in WWE NXT. You were watching her on USA a couple months ago, so why wouldn't you come down to see her live on top of everything else that the show has to offer? So I'm personally planning to go out there and have the best match I've had so far in 2023. So I would invite people to come down and watch me beat up a Scottishman.
And I'll be there, guys, as well, handing out Turnbuckle Tavern stickers and Acefield Retro stickers, maybe just getting some media clips with some of the guys. Maybe Brother Greatness appears there. So
I'm gonna wall out.
Yeah, you roll up to the table, grab some stuff. I got some Turnbuckle Tavern stickers and keychains, things like that to give out. But let's get back into pro wrestling at large. What's a commonly held belief that you would think you hear in locker rooms or wrestling fans that you passionately disagree with? Is there something that you always hear? You're like, you know what? That's just wrong.
It's a great question. It's not so much a thing I hear people say. It's just more of something I see people do. Just the level, people feeling as though promo work kind of doesn't matter as much anymore. Like, it's just something I kind of realize a lot of the guys in the back, like, oh, I really don't want to grab the mic and all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel like anyone works on their promo game anymore. And I'm so against that. Well, the things we remember in wrestling isn't always the nicest shooting star press. Like, The Rock is The Rock because of the promos. Ric Flair because of the promos. Dusty Rhodes because of the promos. Cody Rhodes just dropped one of the best promos we've heard in this short year on Raw a hot second ago. Like, it's no one seems to care to utilize their voice anymore to speak. Everyone's so focused on what's happening in the ring. And once again, it matters. But I'm just really tired of wrestlers without a voice.
And Jake the Snake made a reference to that on a podcast about doing too much of the ring and having all these great moves. And he wasn't being disrespectful to the fact that he doesn't think the move should be happening. He's thinking that maybe it should mean a little bit more when you're doing all these spots. And we could speak to the talent and the ability to do it, but it asks the question, should we be doing it? And what does it do for the other matches when maybe you're hitting all these moves and then that's not ending the match? So I don't know. I just think that as wrestling fans, like, first and foremost, we're oversaturated and we're privileged to the fact that we expect to see the best high-level action that is expected. But I think if we slow things down, a guy like Jake the Snake used to end matches, with a promo and that DDT. Those are two very simple things.
Yep. And I just wish more guys, as much as I want to say I wish more guys got it, I'm glad they don't, because since I kind of get it, it's how I make my money. So I almost can't argue about it because, me and Desmond Cole, I mean, what really happened in that match? Not to pull the curtain too much, but look at that match. Yeah. The first half of it was lockups. Me and Joey Conway, same story. The first third of the match was a headlock. And the crowd was more engaged to that than they were to a lot of other things that were happening in that ring.
Yeah. And I mean, the diametrical difference between you and Joey Conway, by the way, I know I mentioned before, but I mean, representative, self-explanatory, being Satan himself personified is what Joey's going for. And he got the wrestling Christian on the other side. And that, just seeing you guys in the ring locking up, it was like light and darkness against each other. And like, fans got it. People that were next to me, they got it. And I walked away thinking that was match of the night. And I messaged both of you guys, thought you guys crushed it. I thought it was a great match. And I would look forward to you guys working again, whether it's at NYWC or other promotions.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely want to do that again. To be honest, I specifically want to do it at NYWC. I want to be in front of the people that know him well, because it was so nice going in there and knowing that. Funny, I just said that, I wish more people did promos, but a big promotional thing didn't have to happen. I was preparing to get one loaded, and I was like, this doesn't need it. They know what's happening. And they're not expecting this crazy match. They just want to see that tussle of ideals. If you give them that, fine. I'd love to do 30 minutes with him too. I'm big on. I have good cardio, so I like doing the 30s. I'd love to get 30 minutes with that brother.
Be fantastic, and I look forward to seeing it. But as you get into, obviously the training is one thing, but you're looking at it from all different angles. As a manager, as a in-ring competitor, also as a trainer, watching your students go out there and perform. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone starting out as a pro wrestler from point A as their initial sort of entry level?
So many options. I'm going to go with the basic one. At T to T, and there's a rule that was taught to me from Rez, actually, who runs ULW. Shout out to Upper Limit Wrestling. Protect yourself and your opponent. Just have that in your mind the entire time. Protect yourself, protect your opponent. That's rule number one in T to T. before I let anyone do a role, or back when I was training people. What's rule number one? Protect yourself and your opponent. It's one rule because both are just as important. No one needs to break. You don't have to break a neck to win a match. Just get through your performance and let's get out of here.
So you mentioned before some interesting interactions with fans in different areas, specifically Worcester. But I mean, I think independent wrestling is best because of everything stripped down to its core spirit. Interaction pre-match. You're so accessible during the match. Fans can literally reach out and touch you. I mean, I don't recommend it everybody, but you're that close to everybody. And then at the merch table too. I mean, do you have any stories about interesting interactions with fans at the indie shows that just pop in your mind, whether it be in New York or Boston or Connecticut or wherever?
At this point, my worst story is infamous. The baby. We all know the baby. When a father put his baby in the offering basket.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
don't see well, so I didn't know it was a live baby. I thought it was a doll. And then I felt the weight of the baby in the basket. Just wildest thing. And then a few weeks later, there's a local pastor in Worcester, Pastor Mike, and we did a christening for the baby. So we christened the baby a few weeks later. A couple weeks after that, we got the the plaque, for the baby dedication, and it's that easily the wildest. I've gotten Satan bucks and shirts with my face on it and a pentagram, and
Oh wow.
prayed with people, and people just found out they had cancer in Delaware, and we did a whole prayer circle with the family. So a lot, just I could go on and on, but easily the craziest thing was the baby in the offering basket. that blew my mind, and the way Twitter responded after just exemplified it.
Man, and honestly, that's not how you're going to be remembered in wrestling. Let's talk about legacy. So as far as 10 years in the business, right now, you mentioned, flirting with not being an active competitor anymore and wanted to give out to just being sort of the manager and wanted to be giving back your knowledge to other wrestling communities. But as far as legacy goes, let's fast forward to 2043, 20 years from now. How do you want to remember when someone says the name Brother Greatness? How do you want to be associated with?
I want to be I want to be the AEW manager that talked about God. That's was like, oh yeah, he was the manager. He was awesome. He was the Jesus Christ loving dude. Him. Yeah. I'll start going back to church because that's all I'm on TV. That's what I want. Yes, I would love for this to be my primary career. That'd be great. Honestly, that's part of the reason I'm making the pivot to management. I think I have a much better chance and have honestly more to give professional wrestling as a manager than I do as an in-ring competitor. It's just how I feel, and I think a lot of people who are way smarter than me feel the same way. But that's what I'm hoping to be remembered for, just being the Christian dude in wrestling on a major platform.
And having the ability to bump and be able to have the experience in the ring. I mean, people forget Bobby Heenan had the ability to do all those things prior to, because we all remember him in the late 80s managing Andre the Giant, and that wasn't the case. He was able to bump around because he used to be an active worker well before that in the 70s.
Yeah, most of the managers can and or did. Vast majority of them, man. I mean, everyone. I'm trying to think who did it besides
Right.
Heyman. And Heyman bumps around too. So I mean, who cares?
It's true. Heyman's story is so fascinating, man. I don't know if you ever watched the WWE documentary with him sneaking into Studio 54 with the being a photographer he knew was senior. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite documentaries actually, and it's just he has such a sleazy way in, and it just fits him to a T, and it's just so fun it's just great between him and the original Slick. There's a lot of really cool stories from the managers. Teddy Long's story where he did everything at one point or the other.
And also too with Paul Heyman, going back to him for a second, when you watch, there was a video posted on social media where someone was zooming in throughout the Bloodline storyline, key moments of Paul Heyman's facial expression. So I ask everybody that is consuming wrestling, go out of your way, just watch Paul Heyman one segment, just watch his facial expressions. It's a masterclass in just showing emotion without words. He's not even the main person on the screen, and he's reacting to things. He's making you feel certain things. Just watch him. And that was true for his whole career. I mean, whether he's behind the announce desk or he was the owner of ECW, he elicited so much emotion just by saying as little as possible. And he could motivate people to run through a wall. That's been characterized by everyone that worked under him at ECW. And some people wanted to kill him later on when he wouldn't catch their paychecks. But also he could get you back to come back after he screwed you over. And that speaks to his level of motivation. Like it's crazy. He's still doing it at a high level right now.
Yeah. And I dare to say he gets better. He gets better with time. As soon as you think you kind of got him figured out and you think he might be in a rut, he goes missing for a month, comes back and gives you a whole new offering, but still manages to be truly Paul Heyman.
So as we wind up down here, we've about 5 minutes left, and part of the show is talking to future stars such as yourself, and the future is very bright for Brother Greatness. Wrestling seems to have more young talent than ever. We mentioned a lot of them here. You mentioned them in passing, but I want to give you this spot officially to say who they are and where they can be found. Who are 3 wrestlers you recommend for people to check out to break out or continue to crush it in 2023?
Man, only 3?
Don't give more than 3. This is a platform. I want these guys to get recognized. Go out and follow them and find where they're wrestling.
I'm going to say 5. And I already said Alec Price, so I'm going to leave that alone. Yeah, gotta go Miracle Generation. You know, Dustin Flashwaller, Kylon King. Miracle Generation, absolutely fantastic. I'm a cheat. Miracle Generation, so that includes the Haven. The entire Haven is because the Haven's
Ichiban's in there too.
Ichiban's part of the Miracle One. So all that, the Miracle Generation out of Connecticut, PAPW boys / TOS boy with Ichiban. You catch all of them on the Wrestling Open, catch them at Remarkable. You can catch them everywhere there's wrestling in the Northeast at this point. They're not hard to find. Watch any Beyond a Wrestling Open show. You'll get all their Twitter information right there via Wrestling Open. The Miracle Generation boys. We talked about Dez 1,000 times, but come on, man. Desmond Cole, baby. The Big Boofa. The Killer Kicker. The Dancing Destroyer. The Rhythmic Remediation on the dance floor and in the canvas. The Big Boofa. Desmond Cole. Got to give him some love. And let's go. I'll do one more so I don't overdo it. Let's get a women's wrestler in there. You know what? Karen Bam Bam.
Okay.
Karen Bam Bam, really, really talented. She's limited her bookings as of late, but the bookings she does take are a very high level. So definitely Karen Bam Bam. She was on Black Girl Magic, just wrestled Trish Adora back in August. Definitely worth watching. Title match on YouTube, Karen Bam Bam.
Guys, so check all those guys out and check out their work because they're continuing to crush it. And I'd be amiss if I didn't give you the opportunity to give people a few things that they could expect from Brother Greatness throughout 2023 and beyond before he gets to AEW. What can we expect in the recent? We talk about VPW, but any other future bookings you want to talk about?
Yep, this Sunday, Test of Strength Wrestling presents Training Day. I'm going to be in a tag team contest and finally get my hands on one Mike Skyro, someone I've been trying to wrestle for 2 years, and a lot of people in the Connecticut area have gotten very accustomed to hearing me scream out Skyros in a ring while begging for his presence. And he'll be teaming with Sammy Diaz, who took the K1 Classic Championship from me about 3 years ago. First time I'm getting my hands on him in that kind of situation. Funny enough, he was in the church with me, but, separate lives. Of course, you mentioned VPW, Notorious. I mean, seeing Notorious Mimi wrestle in person on the island for the first time in years, that's worth the price of admission by itself. But, both of us will be there too, so.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
And, of course, Wrestling Open coming up every Thursday. I'll be there this Thursday and pretty much every Thursday in February, I believe. And then Beyond Wrestling at the end of the month, last Sunday of the month. Hopefully, Brother Greatness will be there. Even if I'm not specifically in the ring, you'll most likely see me by a table. So come on down.
Every Thursday forever, guys. And if you can't be there in person in Worcester because it's a far drive, consume it on IWTV, whether it be live or on demand. Go back and watch the back catalog of what Beyond's been doing. And I don't want to hype it up too much, but on Thursdays, it's been just fantastic watching. And people complain about the current day product. And like you mentioned before, there are options out there. You just have to find them.
Yep, there's a lot of, we could probably name 10 weekly programs between us in under a minute. So there's a lot of options, but Wrestling Open, definitely one of the easiest to consume. $10, IWTV.
Absolutely. And you guys can remember to follow Brother Greatness on Instagram at Brother Greatness 2012. I'll include his social information in the description below. A pro wrestling tee store as well. I'll include that so you guys can pick up some merch, and give Brother Greatness some charitables into his basket because we want to make sure you guys, he can continue to do this for a long time because he's entertaining as hell. And you guys check out everything he's doing, whether he's in your area or, like I said, IWTV, you can check him out. His bookings are all on social media. So I want to thank you so much first and foremost. I look forward to working with you again in the near future. This has been a blast, and you are welcome to come on anytime to have further discussion and get, more stuff out there if you have anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. And hey, I'll see you in about a week.
That sounds good to me. And guys, this has been Visit the Tavern. We'll catch you next week with another episode. We'll catch you next time.